Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is not Sargon's stunt double. It is Agent of Doubt. And today I want to talk about the first night of the 2019 Democratic Party debates, where they're trying to whittle it down a little bit so that they can go into the primary season and really be strong so that they can oust Trump as president. So, thoughts. There were some people that I expected to get a boost from this debate, and I feel like I was right on the money with Elizabeth Warren getting a pretty big boost. In fact, they let her speak last as far as the closing statement, and people were wondering, is it by design that Elizabeth Warren was with a panel that did not include, Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden? And, they said, well, it was selected randomly and fairly. But, the end of the first night of the debates, to me, I felt like they gave Elizabeth Warren the final word as like punctuation. But what really stood out to me, like it should be a meme tomorrow, is when they asked, which of you would turn in your health care that you have right now and go to a Medicaid for All plan tomorrow? Just turn in the insurance you have and just go right to being on Medicaid for All. And Elizabeth Warren's hand shot right up. And de Blasio's hand went up about a second later. He was all the way on the end. She was in the middle, and you could see her hand just shoot right up. Yeah, I'd do it. And other than those two, nobody had their hand up. And it was a big difference, sort of like when Cory Booker said that no, he would not go back to the 2015 Iran nuke stuff. The treaty that they had back then. He said that he'd want to try to negotiate for a better treaty, which sounded kind of Trump-like, if you ask me, but it made him stand apart, and it gave him more screen time, more camera time on him, which he got some good camera time out of this. And going into this, I was not a Cory Booker fan. I'm very much in the secular talk has my ear on Cory Booker as far as him being beholden to corporate interests. But that kind of mold, So going into it, I did not want to like him, And I feel like the three people who got the biggest boost from this were Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, and Cory Booker. And Cory Booker, in my heart, had the biggest gap to close in order for me to like him, And so I feel like he probably got the most out of the debates for getting all of that camera time that he was able to get. They were able to shut down some of the other people on the debate panel when they wanted to interject or, they wanted to speak right before a commercial break. And Cory Booker was just grabbing that camera and just holding that spotlight, and really getting his message across. And speaking in Spanish, not a bad thing, But going into this, I was rooting for Elizabeth Warren. You guys who've been watching my channel, you know that the day after Trump was elected, I said, Warren 2020, And when I said that, I did not think that Bernie was going to re-enter the race. And so, kind of like, I'm a Steelers fan and I don't want to see the Patriots in the AFC Championship game because I don't feel like going up against the hardest opponent. I don't want to see it coming down to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Not that it would be a complete repeat of the previous election cycle. They're a lot more similar. It's just I would hope that I guess they wouldn't have to fight it out, you know, because they're so similar and they're all in it for a lot of things that I've been, you know, an incrementalist on in the past, you know, but I feel like the pulse of the country, like all of the youth, are pretty dissuaded from incrementalism. Like I might be willing to do it myself. I might think that it might be better in some areas, but you know, the pulse of the country right now is not incrementalism, you know, and it's going to be very immediate changes, very swift changes, and I'm like, well, you know, if that's what it takes to get them, let's go that way. The only reason why I was an incrementalist is, you know, if that's what it takes to get eventual change, little baby steps, let's do it. You know, let's at least head in the direction. But now, it seems like people are campaigning on all or nothing because the temperature of the country is all or nothing. I especially liked when Tulsi Gabbard was able to address that she used to have different beliefs about the LGBT community and she's grown as a person. I just like when people are able to put that point out there, that they were able to grow as a person and it's okay to have forgiveness and redemption in the fucking world, right? But also I felt like when she was able to school another of the debaters as far as it was Al-Qaeda who flew planes into the World Trade Center, not the Taliban. When she did that, it was more than just splitting hairs. It was really putting her precise wording against somebody who then had to backpedal and say, well, the Taliban was protecting them in the end, you know, in order to shoehorn in what he was trying to say. You know, her knowledge of foreign affairs shamed him in a way that reminded me of Gary Johnson's Aleppo moment, like 3 years ago. You know, it was bad, and she was shining in the end. And so, yeah, that was my take on it. I liked Bill de Blasio in this. I liked the things that he was saying. I don't know much about him as far as the viability of his candidacy. I haven't been paying a lot of attention to him, but I was liking the things that he was saying, you know. Julian Castro, I felt like when he made the point that it's not just women who would need access to abortion care, it's also trans people. When he said trans women, I felt like, oh shit. Like, of course the crowd was cheering because he was virtue signaling that it's important to be inclusive of the LGBT community. But hear me out here. A trans man is somebody who now identifies as a man. A trans woman is somebody who now identifies as a woman. So a trans woman would not need access to abortions unless they had like a uterus transplant put in them, which isn't standard procedure at all as far as I know. It would be the trans man who might need access to abortion care, because you're supposed to, if you're being woke, all right, if you're going to win the woke Olympics, you're supposed to identify people with what they want to identify with now, not what they were. So when Mr. Castro said trans women were going to need the abortion care too, like as part of their health care, I was like, quit throwing out these buzzwords for woke points. You are fake, and unfortunately he's got a lot of credentials that are really good, but when he threw that out there, I'm like, first of all, what percentage of these trans people that need abortion care, what percentage of them are they of the larger picture that we're talking about, of women who need, uterus people? We'll just make it like all inclusive. Anyone with a uterus, right? What percentage of those people are they? Why is it so important to include that little demographic in this debate? Well, you're pandering. You're pandering with wokeness. And it came off as plastic to me and fake, and I wasn't really listening to him for the rest of the debates. And I like trans people. I have plenty of trans friends. I serve a trans community. And I was just like, yeah, it's great to include people, but not like to try to use them to score political points as just like a side note. It just really rang hollow to me. And those are my feelings about it. It wasn't the feelings of the people in the audience at the moment. They were cheering him. But I'm sure some people went home thinking, well, yeah, that was kind of a fake move. I was actually really happy that Beto O'Rourke was getting beat up on, especially given that his Medicare for America or Medicaid for America plan is way different than Medicare for all. It's way, way different. It's so different. It's basically incrementalism, baby steps, and given that he's from Texas, it's like he's answering to the base that he has in Texas in coming up with that half step. It's not just being bought out by a corporate interest. I don't think that's going on there. I think he's representing the right in Texas as far as what they would want as for a compromise. And that's not what's best for the whole country, his plan there. Unless, of course, you work for an insurance company in the healthcare industry, then maybe that's your best bet. But as far as the lay person, the person who actually has to get health insurance for themselves, I don't think that his plan was near as good as the all-in plan or even smaller incremental steps that were taken by like the Obama administration in just expanding Medicaid for another 25 million people. Those things that he would do like incrementally. Those were good, but the way that Beto O'Rourke is trying to go about it is like something that I researched beforehand. So I was just happy to see how he was being kind of squeezed out of this debate, in my opinion. Yeah. I even watched a documentary on him that didn't have the specifics of his Medicaid for America plan in it. It was after I watched that documentary on, I think it was Netflix, that I read about his Medicaid for America plan, and I was like, this is not good. You know, we've got, instead of having different plans from the Republicans and the Democrats, now we've got the Democrats having, you know, the split within them as far as should we go for everything or compromise a little. And in that way, I really feel like Beto O'Rourke, on that one subject, he could be a Republican, you know. A Democrat from his districts in Texas comes off kind of like a Republican on certain issues. Kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger being a Republican, it was like a Democrat in Iowa, you know. These things are just clubs to get you elected anyway, right? But the platform planks count. They matter. And what I'm seeing so far is that the majority of the people on that stage were for Medicaid, Medicare for all. You know, they were for universal health care, single payer. And that is progressive forward thinking. That gets us in line with the best of the rest of the world. And it's going to be inevitable, in my opinion, that we're going to need things like that. And now I'm waiting for tomorrow's debate with Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders as like the two headliners, and I really want to see if Andrew Wang picks up some steam from this, because I like some things that he's been saying, and I want to see how he weighs in on all the other issues that I haven't seen him talk about, in case they can, you know, poll the entire panel or you know, pin him down on one issue that he hasn't spoken about before. He's got a lot of cross-party appeal as well, Andrew Yang. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. I do read all your comments, guys, on my videos, and Jamie Demeter on my last video said Bob Lazar was on Joe Rogan's show claiming that he worked on UFOs. Can you give your opinion on it? Is he telling the truth? Neil deGrasse Tyson is silent on the matter, as is Richard Dawkins. I'm not surprised that Richard Dawkins is silent on everything nowadays, because he's in his 80s and he has handlers. And this is something that I'm not ashamed to say, but you know, I feel like Richard Dawkins should stay away from social media and answering questions about UFOs and shit like that, because he does have a legacy to leave that would be tarnished if he were to be as active as he was in previous years now. Neil deGrasse Tyson being silent on it, I don't even know what that means. Like, did he not grace it with an opinion? I don't know. And when it's Bob Lazar, I'm pretty sure that they mean extraterrestrial UFOs, not just like capturing foreign aircraft and reinventing. Sorry, what do you call that? Retro engineering, the technology for it. Yeah, I think Bob Lazar like specifically says, no, these are fucking UFOs. I've never seen anything like that in my life, and I was in the Army as a test, measurement, and diagnostic maintenance support specialist. There are many technologies that I've seen come and go. in my lifetime, and I've seen what I would equate to a fossil record of new technologies that came out and replaced the old technologies in such a manner that I understand some of the technologies that we have today, and it makes sense that we have them. They were a natural progression from what happened before. And so, yeah, I don't believe claims that the government was retro-engineering alien technology to give it to us. I just, I've seen the equivalent of a fossil record building up in my lifetime of different changes in electronics. So, no. Also, Poseidon Kicklodon says, Ramble for your next Ramble vid. Something very topical for you in Colorado. Should they finally tear down Columbine to stop mass murder tourists? And he goes on with more about that. Says that the subject came up on CNN. I've actually talked with my coworker about something very similar to that last April. And I know it was April because it was like the 20-year anniversary of the Columbine shooting, and then another shooting happened over at the STEM high school. And that was like a 15-minute drive away from where Columbine was, and it was like an echo of what happened then. And I'm happy that not as many people were hurt in that instant, but it was still bad. So during that time, something happened in my life that I'm going to be making a video on. And yeah, I do believe that perhaps they should tear down Columbine High School and put up a different high school somewhere slightly different. Because on the 20th of April, I think, through like, I think it was mid-May was the last time I drove by there. There were police cars there, making sure that anyone who was trying to go in and out of the parking lot were people who needed to go to that high school. And they were basically guarding from this kind of tourism. And so, yeah, not only have I thought about it myself, but I've had conversations with my coworkers in this Denver area as well. And yes, I do think that just its existence keeps reminding people of that. And it would be kind of like how they got rid of Sandy Hook Elementary School, so it wouldn't be a memorial where people would visit it. And guess how they made that decision? By looking at what happened to Columbine. So, those are my thoughts on that. If you guys have any other strange questions, go ahead and put them in the description. Sorry, in the comments under the description. And I'll try to answer them in video just like I always have before. I just took a long break from really interacting with you guys. Yeah. See you after tomorrow's debate. This is like my favorite season of YouTubing, is the primaries and the presidential election. It really brings me back as far as like, I think we can all have these conversations again. I think we've got some energy back. This is good. Hopefully it doesn't tear our community apart like other things have.